we need to start taking a look at the truth of humanity and the truth of what's happening within humanity right now to truly understand what to do about it. If you look around the world today, it's safe to say that everybody's losing our shit. Things don't look super good. They don't look super fun and light and happy all the time. There's a dichotomy of beauty and chaos within the world, and that split is growing larger and larger by the second. But we need to take an understanding to why this is occurring. What is the purpose of it? And how can we personally, with our own awareness of our own lives, be the factor of change? We're going to start with a word that makes people very uncomfortable, that people don't want to look at a lot. We don't like this word, or we use this word in the wrong way. But before I say the word, I want you guys to taste the word that I'm about to give you, as if I'm about to cook you a recipe with that word that you have never tried before in your life. So what is it that is the unifying factor that humanity needs to start facing within a group scale consciousness, a collective scale consciousness, and an individual scale consciousness? The ingredient is narcissism. And before you get super scared, that word has been so obstructed and so slayed and misinterpreted within the human consciousness. Don't be scared of the word. The word can be your greatest teacher. Narcissism is a spectrum, first of all, as most things are. You don't have to be full-on crazy narcissist, but the truth is that everybody on the planet today is on a path of narcissism. Within our collective consciousness, we are working towards narcissism in some way or form. And I'm going to explain how this is. But I'm also going to explain why you shouldn't be scared of this word. But by understanding and seeing yourself in this word and seeing the group consciousness that is the human race within this word can actually be your single greatest gift to awareness, to control and power, and to being the dividing force that moves forward within humanity in a new way. I want you to understand something about this word for a second. And we're going to take a metaphorical standpoint on this. Let's take a look at a plant that maybe is in a certain microbiome environment that creates some kind of fungus or bacterial infection around it. That bacterial infection starts to become a part of its cellular makeup. And it is in a fight for its life. This is a bit like how the human narcissistic disease started spreading. We as humans started fighting each other long ago. We started on a tribal level of consciousness that was disconnected from true understanding, but was still a group consciousness. In an exploration of ego, the path that humans started taking is they started exploring the individual consciousness and therefore the human ego, and therefore the diversity of individualism on a deeper level than this universe has ever experienced quite like this before. Now, it actually serves the universe in some great fashion, and it is actually a largely beneficial event that's happening within the universe right now that is simply not going the way that it was intended to go. We're living in a giant experiment, and we need to wake up. Because the suffering that's happening in this experiment is unbearable for most. And because you're a part of my human family, I'm making this video so that we can collectively each be the dividing factor and piece that steps up and awakens from this. Narcissism is kind of like a virus. When you look at the individual human being within a physical body, what you need to understand is that we rely on both group and individual ego. There's a yin and a yang within the human race and within the polarity of this planet. We have many teachings, like Taoism, that embrace the ego in a very large way. And then we have teachings like disidentification that say, no, we are all one. The truth is that the most healthy version of awareness comes from an owning of individuality and an owning of unity consciousness. Because within the polarity of Earth's laws and physics, we have to embrace both. We have a human body, and we are a species that needs the most individual focus in order to live our purpose and survival and our purpose and our joy and our growth and progression the very most. We need to embrace the ego. And as desperately as we are the species that needs to embrace the ego the most, we also need to embrace the tribe. Now let's go cultural for a hot second. We have societies like in America where individualism has gone crazy. We have different states in America where it's like in fighting for the individual and freedom of the individual's voice and I want to be who I want to be is like. Then we go to somewhere like Japan where everybody is working for the group's consciousness, for the group, but at the individual's expense. And in America, everybody is fighting for the individual at the group's expense. Neither work out very well for humanity. And it is the combining forces of both going towards individual consciousness and embracing the individual ego and group consciousness that is going to get us out of this puddle that we have locked ourselves into. The heat is getting turned up on the universe, and we're in a bit of a sinking sand pit. We're in a bit of a quicksand situation, if you will. How does this all relate to narcissism? Let's go back to the beginning. So, way back when, in our ancestral lines, what we had was the tribal consciousness connected to the body of the earth itself and working in complete group organism consciousness. But it was completely unaware of its individual self, and it was still much more one large living organism, which isn't too far off course from the level of consciousness and awareness and unawareness of other aspects of the universe. What was always intended is that within the progression of humanity, that physical body, this boundary line of skin and identity and one perspective and filter that each of us lives in our little bubble of a life, it was always intended that we would break away from that in the progression of consciousness. And the next line of progression is this: disconnection. So in the first level of consciousness, tribal consciousness, we have complete interconnection without much understanding or progression or awareness or desire being brought up within the individual, because it's all for the group and everything's kind of copacetic and working together. And then we get to the next level of consciousness, and this happened just around before the Middle Ages, but it also went back all the way to different eras within ancient Egypt, for example. And we started looking at the human race splitting and splitting hard. And the splitting was this. This state of disconnection that humanity was going into was really to create a desire for introspection of the self, a fight for the self, a fight to understand the individual consciousness, and therefore understand what is not source, what is not oneness, what is growth, and thrive for an individual's purpose, desire, and joy, and to experience a level of disconnection like this universe, this multiverse has never seen before. But this is also the rise of suffering. And believe it or not, since that time period, we have actually gotten more and more disconnected, not closer. We've become more and more and more and more disconnected in a different way. We became less and less and less and less group-oriented and more individual fight-oriented. Unfortunately, that also involved us putting plant life, animal life, and the very planet or home that we live on at risk, and we started acting like one giant parasitic element that may or may not be currently triggering the immune system of the earth. Yay. So it's wake-up call time, and that's what this pandemic has really been about. It's been about the ingredient within the human race that can be our single biggest wake-up call through understanding, and it is also our single biggest downfall and disaster within humanity. How can understanding and seeing the narcissism within humanity and within your own life actually help you and make you the chess player on this game that we're ensuing, actually make you a stronger player with more moves under your belt, with more strategies, with more foresight, if we shall? It is only within a total understanding of the game that you can truly understand how to win the game. Let's take chess, for example. If I don't know my weaknesses as a knight, and if I don't know my strengths as a knight, I don't know how to advance on the board. It's actually super beneficial to take a look at both our strengths and our weaknesses. But there's another factor here. The best chess players know how to strategize, but they also know how to make all of their pieces work together. We need to stop looking at each other like our narcissistic tendencies are our fault. Yes, there is responsibility in how we choose to act and our choice to go towards awareness and growth, which is the whole point, and to continue old patterns that don't serve us nor anyone else on this planet. They also don't serve our desires. This is the thing within narcissism, is that when we were children, at some point in our life, we were this sacred being coming in with source consciousness, with a purpose, and all of this beautiful bundle of joy energy within us as a little baby. And when we started developing our brain, we were brought up in a society and in a family that without a doubt displayed a large form of narcissism that has been happening for generations. And by growing up in that narcissism, you become a part of it. Again, if a plant is living in an environment where its microbiome is largely at risk and there's a fungus and a parasitic element all around it, it's gonna catch the bug. This is what's happened to every human. And The reason that we catch the bug is this, is that on a mental and an emotional and a physical level, our nervous system in our brain and our form of self-regulation and safety is at risk, and it fears for its own survival. It perceives a lack of ability to obtain its desires and create what its wants and needs are, which are the largest driving force of the human. It's something that's very beautiful about us too, is our ability to create and dream and desire things. And it's something that has been instilled in us as a way to seek that individuality and that growth and that progression forward that the universe so craves from us. But here's the thing. Because of the system that we grew up in, our desires felt like they were being crushed. Our needs felt like they were being crushed. And our nervous system, our regulation, our emotional and mental system went through experiences where its survival felt like it was being threatened by the group, where its needs felt like it was being threatened by the group, where it felt like it was never going to get its desires or needs met because it was so reliant on the group. And our brains did something like this. And the reason is this. In order to move forward from that level of fear and stress and inability to get what we want, the subconscious does something like this. As it splits, what it does is it creates one box over here, one part of us over here, and then one part of us that goes here and continues to move forward. And this one goes behind. And the reason is this. If we are holding on to a piece of our consciousness that is going through something unspeakable, that we can't get what we want and we don't have our sense of power, the way that our subconscious has been implemented and designed is to go and move forward anyways. But therefore, we leave that part of us behind, stuck in the situation with all the information that it had at the time about its life and reality. And these parts of trauma within us don't stop impacting our life. And when we have enough of these experiences where we're holding on to this lack of our desire and our power being able to move forward the way that we want it to be, we start to feel our sense of self being threatened. And therefore we get into a fight of sense of self. We get into strategies on how to get our desires and needs met and how to survive in the group, in the social setting. And we do this in one of two ways. One is a form of codependency, which is just a different form of narcissistic strategy. And one is just straight narcissism. But both are actually a subconscious form of fight for the self, for the desires. And if you really understand the positive intention behind fighting for the self, fighting for their identity, fighting for your desires and purpose, narcissism doesn't sound so scary anymore because we can understand why it's happening and occurring. It is because our sense of self has been so threatened and so weakened that we actually do the opposite by fighting for it so victoriously. But it is the fight for the self that moves us away from the group. And that sense of isolation and self-fight only weakens us and only takes us closer and farther from our desires simultaneously. A lot of our desires actually have to do with the group, and yet we are unable to build healthy relationships. We're unable to create close, intimate relationships and community. Community is one of the largest things that we need. We are a tribal species. And if you take a system like a car, it needs an engine, it needs some gas, it needs a carburetor, it needs brakes and brake pads to run smoothly. And if you are a brake pad You have a really great purpose, but you're not doing much on the floor without the rest of the car. You're not moving forward towards your direction. And so it is both the owning of group consciousness and the standing up within the individuality and the introspection of individuality and moving towards our desires. Now, owning the group and fighting for the group actually allows us to get our desires more. Because if we are not a working car, we're not moving and we're not going in the direction of our desires. We're going to be sitting in the driveway our whole life, essentially. We need the group to make those desires come to fruition. But it is also a vital, important factor that we create individual desire, boundaries, and needs, and take the individual identity is crucially important. Because humanity cannot actually serve the group without serving the indigenously. When it is only serving the group and not serving the individual simultaneously in interdependence, it is also a form of self-depletion. Therefore, it will not get us on our path to create desires. And that creative nature and that growth is something that the universe juices up for more than anything. We all want our desires. It's the greatest human need. It's the greatest human programming. And it's the greatest human downfall. Narcissism is what gets in our way. I'm going to give you some more examples. The ego and narcissism works with desire like this. Who here has seen Lord of the Rings? You know how there was that one sacred, my precious, to rule them all? Each human's desire kind of looks like that. We have this one desire that we're fighting for, that's ours, and you can't take it from us. And I'll fight you for it, right? Like super golem on your ass if you get in my face. The more that we do that, the more that we don't actually get the help that we need to get there. It's our greatest downfall. And we also start seeing the universe fighting us on that desire as well. We start to project our past traumatic experiences on the universe itself, and therefore the greatest universal resource there is within our biome of reality. Now, the more we fight other, and the more we fight our experience, the farther away desire gets. The more that we crave our desires and refuse to take a look at our current reality point, our current state of life, the farther away our desires get. It is when we fully own what is happening in our reality here and now. It may feel like the universe is trying to take your precious away, when in reality, it's bringing the total elemental change of awareness, which may feel like total chaos to you at times, in order to actually drive you in the direction that will bring you to that. And the more you fight the universe, the harder it becomes for you, because the universe's only game at that point is to fight harder back, to push you in the direction that you need to be in. I'm gonna give you another example on the human downfall. This one's gonna be pretty intense. Let's take heroin, for example. If you start using heroin, it convinces you that if you don't get that thing, you are gonna be totally killed and destroyed. Everything within your body is telling you that. But the thing that you need the very most in order to survive and live a healthy life is obviously to get off the drug. This is what's happening within a lot of our fight for desire. We have different forms of heroin that we're addicted to, or we have certain paths even that we think are gonna get us what we want, which is the heroin. But we're so convinced that we're gonna die if we don't do it one way, and we're so convinced that We don't know any other way to be. A drug addict will convince themselves that they can't live without the drug and that they need it to be happy, and that's what they really want. And they just can't do it without it. And this is a huge mirror to how humans struggle with any form of coping mechanism, any form of desire, any form of personal egoic downfall. Is we think we know what's best for us. We think we know what we can or can't do about our life. We think we know what's happening within the universe. But our refusal to see reality beyond our most basic form of experience, coming from a place of trauma, which is the heroin and also the desire simultaneously, because trauma gives way to desire. The truth is, if we would look at our own narcissism, and if we would look at the ways that we currently are on a path that doesn't serve us, if we would look at the ways that we currently don't think we can change, if we would be open to a completely different perspective, or we could be open to how the universe is trying to help us instead of destroy us. If we could awaken to a brutal honesty within our reality, a brutal introspection within our reality, an ability to own whatever is going on. You can't get off heroin until you lean into the pain, lean into the addiction. And eventually, it may be a long road, and you'll get what you want, which is to just feel good again. It may be a long road ahead for us where we are in reality right now. But if we want to create our desires, we're going to have to face the introspection and reality check of our life. Therefore, face our own personal brand of narcissism. Narcissism can be a number of things. It can be going down a path that doesn't really serve you, fighting for something that doesn't really serve you or others, fighting for a desire in a way that doesn't serve you or others, going down a path that you're so convinced is right, but is really just not right for you, denying reality, being unwilling to face it, and fighting reality in the way that it is constantly. Have you ever seen Harry Potter and the devil snare scene? In order to sink through the devil snare, you must actually release resistance to it. You need to stop fighting it. The more that you fight, the harder it fights you. If you surrender, you sink through to the next level. Harry Potter was teaching us a little bit of something about how to deal with our own resistance to life. And our resistance to life and our resistance to what's happened to us in our path and where we currently are and our fight for desire, all a part of the narcissism pie that we need to awaken from. It doesn't mean that you can't have your desires. And in fact, the awareness of how you are not currently serving yourself in them, in your greater path and awareness and purpose, and how you're fighting in a way that doesn't serve you or others, or even serve your own identity, is the fight for our identity that takes us off course to the true growth and progression of our identity. So how can we create more awareness? The greatest form of awareness is a big reality check. To do everything in your power to both become aware of your own narcissism and feed it simultaneously. Our narcissism got created because of missing needs, missing experiences, and trauma. A fight against the self. And that is why the self started fighting in the first place. Therefore, self-love is the antidote that will push you into collective awareness, consciousness, growth, and community organism. It is through group consciousness, through community organism, and owning of the individual within that will allow us to move forward as a human race and overcome the current challenges that we face.